All right, so this is the For the Win 3 Ultra RTX 3080 from EVGA, and this is the LHR model, so it's the low hash rate. So if you get this for mining, you're gonna get about half the hash rate that you would typically get if you were to get the non-LHR model. So let's get it unboxed. I've already unboxed it a couple of times because I've had a couple of technical errors, one with the quality of the upper head camera, and then one with my microphone. But now everything should be good, so let's shoot it for the third, actually it's the fourth, technically fourth time. So let's pop this out. This is just a sleeve like usual. Throw it down. Just as a reminder, this has 8,704 CUDA cores, the RTX 3080 does. It has a boost clock of 1800 megahertz. It has 10 gigabytes of GDDR6X memory, and that has the effective clock rate of 19,000 megahertz. Now, once you go ahead and unbox it, you're gonna get the installation guide up top right here. And then down here, we're gonna have tension bracket. This is for anti-sag, right? This is basically their anti-sag bracket. Now, this goes on the end of the back plate, which I'll show you guys where exactly it goes. I wish it was black because that matches the back plate. This is silver. It's kind of a sore thumb if you put it on, but I'll show you how that goes and where that goes in just a moment. It also comes with screws to attach it. Now, this card is going to be a big boy. Just pop it out real quick. Boop. Throw this over here and undo this. Okay. So this is a pretty hefty card. This is gonna require, or they recommend a 750 watt power supply. You can get away with a 650 watt power supply depending on what's in your system, but I matched this in PC Power Picker with a 5950X and it said it was fine theoretically. So a 650 would probably work, but again, getting 750 or 850 would probably be smarter in the long run, just so you have a little bit of extra capacity in your power supply and you're not pushing it to its limit at all times. It's going to take about 320 watts. I think it can actually get more than that if you use the OC BIOS, which I'll show you guys in a second. But at the front, as you guys can see, nice looking card. It's mostly plastic up here, but you have like these black little dents right here. You have three, I think they're 92 millimeter fans, and this one's gonna be offset down a little bit. And on each fan blade, you're gonna get these little, the EVGA logo on them. They're pretty nice. When you go to the top right here, you're gonna have like this nice silver band right here. This actually glows RGB when the card is on, even though it doesn't look like it does off the bats when you just look at it. And then at the very top, we're gonna have a couple of things. So we're gonna have 3 8-pin connectors. So you're gonna need 3 8-pin. Again, you're gonna need a pretty big power supply to power this. And then you're gonna also have that switch I was telling you guys about earlier for the BIOS. So by default, it's on normal, but you can also switch it, just flick it to OC mode. Of course, you want to do that when the computer is off, but it'll also kick it into OC mode. I'm gonna flip back to normal because that's how I'm gonna test it. On the back here, we're gonna have our back plate, and it's a pretty nice back plate all around. It looks pretty nice, and it looks great overall. And we're gonna have this one red accent, and this is what I wanna note right here, because on the original non-LHR model right here, guys, these right here, this was red accent as well. They changed it to black to fit in better. There were some complaints, and now it's black instead of red. And then on this side, it was the same exact thing. So this used to be red, but now they switched it to black to, resolve those complaints. On the back here, we're gonna have 3 display ports, and then we're gonna have 1 HDMI port. I personally like HDMI a lot because the cables are a lot thinner. And for what I do, the specs of HDMI works perfectly fine. Now, I was mentioning earlier the back plate, or the the retention bracket. This is the retention bracket right here, and how this works is you'll screw it in right here on the GPU, and it comes with some screws with it, and then this part right here, this end right here, would actually attach to your case. Now, not every case is going to be compatible, but for cases that they are, that's how you'll attach it to the case, and it'll prevent it from sagging. I wish they would have used something different for their anti-sag brackets. I liked how MSI Supreme, they have this like a stand that you put in front and it holds it up, but EVGA decided to go with that instead. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this into my PC. I do have a mini ITX system, so the temperatures and the noise will probably be higher. It'll probably be a worst case scenario overall, but I am gonna get into my system, get some benchmarks for you guys, and then we'll wrap it all up. Okay, so just got done benchmarking here today, guys. Let's go over some of these numbers really quick. I have my Excel sheet open right here. So starting off with noise and then thermals, all right? So on average, we were about 43 decibels of noise output. That's coming from like right about here is where I was recording it. And my system, as you guys can see in this frame, it's right here. So this is my system right here. So this is the distance from each other. Now keep in mind, the system I have it in is a DLH21, the actual case, and this case has a lot of holes in it, so there's a lot of perforation Also, this is a mini ITX case. The 3080 didn't quite fit. All the panels except this side one, like you guys can't see, it's on this side, could not close due to the fact that the power cables for the 3080 were sticking out too much. So the 3080 is a little bit too tall. If I had custom sleeve cables, which I do have around the house, but I don't have enough of them, if I had 3 of them, I probably could have gotten it to work and fit. But that said, I had to leave that side of the case open. So 43 was the average, 45 decibels of noise output was the max. That was during games, during everything I was doing. Now, when it came to temperatures, the CPU was at 56 degrees Celsius, maxed out at 65 degrees Celsius. This is with the EnerMax Link Max 3 as the cooler on the 3900X. No overclock, it's sitting at stock setting. And then as for the GPU, which is probably more important to you guys, it was an average GPU temperature of 77 degrees Celsius and 83 degrees Celsius. If you wanted temperatures to be a little bit lower, you could make the fan curve a little bit more aggressive. So that's not an issue here either. Again, this is probably gonna be the worst case scenario for this card because this is a mini ITX case. It's nice and compact, all that heat's building up quickly, and there's not much exhaust in this case at all. Let's go ahead and start talking about the benchmarking that I did for the system. So starting with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, we had an average frame rate of 82 at 1080p and a 1% low of 57. This is at ultra high settings as well. When we went to 1440p, we had a 72 average frame rate, and then we had a 1% low of 50 frames per second, again at ultra high. And then when we moved to 4K, still at ultra high settings, we were able to push 50 frames per second for the average, and then 36 for the 1% low. Moving on to Fortnite at 1080p, this is epic settings, shadows off, and then DLSS set to balance. We had an average frame rate of 224 frames per second and a 1% low of 98. At 1440p, same settings, we had an average frame rate of 196 frames per second and then a 1% low of 104. And then moving on to 4K, again, same exact settings, we had an average frame rate of 162 and then 1% lows were at 57. I then went ahead and tested GTA 5, game that's been out forever, but it's still pretty popular today. And at 1080p, very high / ultra settings with MSAA ×4, we were looking at 133 frames per second for its average, 92 for its 1% low. At 1440p, same exact settings, we were at 115 for its average frame rate, and then 75 for its 1% low. And then at 4K, again, same exact settings, we were sitting at 73 for its average frames, and then 55 for the 1% low. I then went and took a look at Middle-earth Shadow of War, and at 1080p, this is with the Ultra preset, and the textures were also set to Ultra because it had enough VRAM. We were looking at an average frame rate of 144 frames with a 1% low of 87 frames. When we moved to 1440p, again, same exact settings, Ultra, we had an average frame rate of 128 frames with a 1% low of 88 frames. And then I moved to 4K, and in 4K, again, ultra settings, we were looking at 89 for its average frame rates and then 65 for its 1% low. Again, very playable and really solid performance in this game regardless of resolution. Then taking a look at a really optimized DX12 title, Sniper Elite 4, at 1080p ultra settings, we were looking at 181 frames per second for the average, and then we were looking at 133 frames per second for the 1% low. Looking at 1440p ultra settings, we were at 190 frames per second for the average, and then 140 frames per second for the 1% low. Moving to 4K, again, same settings, ultra, we had 145 frames per second for the average, and then 107 frames per second for its 1% low. I then went ahead and took a look at Valorant, which is one of the most popular esports titles right now, and in the shooting range, because the servers are inconsistent and the servers don't give you a good idea of what you could actually push, at 1080p high settings, we were looking at an average frame rate of 338 frames per second and a 1% low of 226 frames per second. At 1440p high settings, we were looking at an average frame rate of 357 frames and then a 1% low of 231 frames. And then moving to 4K, again, high settings, we were looking at an average frame rate of 307 frames and a 1% low of 200 frames. And so obviously performance of this RTX 3080 is excellent on 1080p, 1440p, and 4K. It's super quiet overall, even under that super heavy heat in this mini ITX case. I'm very sensitive to noise. I didn't have an issue with this card at all. I will be putting it in a larger case, which would obviously bring down the noise levels and the temperatures if I was to do that. So this is kind of worst case scenario when it came to the noise and the thermals for this system. Anyway, let me know what you guys think of this card down in the comments below. Let me know if you have any questions about the card, and I'll do my best to answer them as well. Hope you guys have a great day. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.